inside the four walls, you need to, evolve your business process accordingly. I had to restructure my entire program, focusing entirely on home workouts or exercises which does not need much of space and gives you equally good results. In terms of nutrition, also you need to make sure that you don't give very high end or fancy ingredients to the consumer, because things were not readily available at that time. And even so, now as well, people think twice or thrice before buying anything, uh, with a fear of getting infected or something like that. So the entire business process needs to be changed. We started all sorts of programs. We started a cost-effective program. We started a long-term program and short-term program, because people were losing job. They were, salary cuts. So you have to ensure that you are catering to everybody's requirement and reaching out to more and more wider audience. So yes, that has. These were the steps I think a lot of business models or a lot of business processes have taken to ensure that they stay effectively in the market.
Nice, thank you. So Saloni, there is a question from Athira Nambisan. So he's a student of business management, and he says, my schedule is very dynamic. It keeps changing and sometimes it's really hectic. So I wanted to start my side hustle and grow it, but I'm constantly worried whether I'll be able to manage my studies. What is your advice to him?
I think this is a very, very common problem that is faced by a lot of people. You are a student, you have studies and extracurricular activities to take care of. There are homemakers who have their families to take care of. There are working professionals who have a job to take care of. There are all kinds of people, who have a lot of other responsibilities on them. And while it's I see that as a good thing that you have something else that also occupies you. That's always like it's a blessing to have something else as well going on in your life. I think just to find the right kind of time for a side hustle is again, it's seen as a very difficult thing, but essentially what most of us tend to do is underestimate what we can do by just dedicatedly putting in about half an hour or 1 hour of work every day. Consistently showing up for 30 minutes to 1 hour every day can do so much for us, can do so much for our businesses, for our side hustles, for whatever we want to pursue. Because for me, initially, when I had a 9 to 5, when I started my YouTube channel, and I was always occupied. My job was very hectic. I worked from 9 to 9 on most days, and I had Bangalore traffic after that to deal with. So there was a lot that I was that I was doing back then as well. But what I did was I ensured that there was a 45-minute slot in my schedule when I was dedicatedly just working on my YouTube channel. Some days I was doing edit work, some days I was creating content, some days I was strategizing content. So just showing up for that little amount of time every day consistently can make a big difference. So figure out how can you set up that 30-minute time slot every day. If your schedule is very dynamic, like you said, probably you won't have that one fixed slot every day, but 30 minutes in at any time in your schedule, if you can show up, I think that would do wonders for you. Just try and do that for a month, and I'm sure you'll start seeing results.
And I want to add to the earlier question also, Subhash, that how to create your niche. And like she said, she asked how to work on the side hustle. Mm-hmm. Niche and side hustle, it has a lot of connection with passion. If you are passionate about the concept you want to build upon, you will never be tired. You will take out that 30 minutes or 1 hour of the day, and you will be always excited to give some positive inputs towards it. So when it comes to building niche, this is what I'm passionate about, and I can talk about it, and people will listen to me because I know my game. And that's how the side hustle also works, because you want to do something on that segment, so okay. You will work towards it.
Yeah, Diksha, if may I ask, so for your own case, right? So your husband is in Srinagar, you have a kid to take care of, and still you spend 2 hours of time minimum to keep yourself fit and strong, right? So it is multitasking. So and then at the same time, so you are a strong proponent of womenhood, so strong women. So for housewives, right now, who are going through the same hustle, and in fact, so now it's even more tougher because the kids are at home. a lot of things. They still have their interests. So what is your advice on how should they manage their time and still keep themselves motivated to do something beyond their normal routine?
So just to add on to you, keeping yourself fit does not need 2 hours of the day. I do it because that's my way of unwinding myself, and that's me. And so I enjoy taking my time on the treadmill or exercising. But then you just need 45 minutes in a day to keep yourself fit and active, and obviously a consistent effort in terms of dieting. We women, I'm sorry, I might sound a little feminist, but we women have an innate quality of multitasking and pre-planning, which, after 11 years of marriage, I can understand that it's not that, instant in men, other than the work.
It's okay. You can say that men have little, very short span of attention. I'm okay with that.
Yes, personal life, they don't, we can, men cannot manage it that nicely the way we can. So, pre-planning and prioritizing, in terms of what you want to cook, what you want to do next day, how your child's or children's education needs to be, navigated in terms of homework, assignments, and online class. This is all it needs. If you pre-plan your day a day prior, and that's all is needed. And we all have that 24 hours in a day, and some of us are doing it, some of us are not able to do it. Is the only reason is the reason that tells you that probably there's some problem with the planning. So if you plan your day properly, I think it's very much possible to keep yourself fit or to engage in something that you've been passionate about it, or you love doing it. So that's very important, I think.
Nice, great. So, Saloni, this is to you. So, is it really worth taking a risk during pandemic for business expansion, or is it only necessary? Should we just ensure that we play a safe game and survive the business? So, do you want to? What will be your advice, not just your approach? Is it to plan big or take life in its stride, or a path in between?
Right. No, I think it really depends on, I'm speaking strictly from a business perspective. As a business, I think it really depends on what kind of business you're into at the moment also. Because if you're involved if you have been fortunate enough to be involved in a business that could, work virtually, I think COVID has provided means of expansion that nobody possibly could have ever thought before. So the whole virtual space has grown so big. It's e-learning, online fitness. There are industries that always existed, but they saw their peak during the COVID era. So I think it's amazing how much possibilities of expansion has come into the picture just because of COVID. But having said that, of course, there are some industries that have seen that just could possibly not become virtual. And if there were businesses that have been in a situation like that, I think to them my advice is to generally just take this period slow. It's okay if you can re-strategize and think if there are different possibilities that you can explore at the moment. If you can re-strategize and see if there's any kind of online model that you can come up with which wouldn't require people to travel or come to a specific location. If that's possible, I think that would be amazing. It isn't possible at all. In that case, I think the pandemic is doing this to everyone. So we're all in the same boat. So it's completely okay to wait this period out a little bit and wait for this to be over, which I'm hoping it will be over really soon with the vaccine trials showing all kinds of success. Yeah, so fingers crossed. And then I think for these kind of businesses, I think the moment this world opens up, I think we're all going to rush out of our homes and we're all going to be flooding their stores and their businesses and just making
getting back to normal is all we are waiting.
That's all we want right now. So it really depends on what kind of businesses you have. But I think for any kind of business, if there is a possibility of doing anything virtually, I think the time is now. The possibilities are endless, and the kind of platforms and the kind of services that have come up that are enabling people to do something virtually is absolutely crazy. Just look at this, like we're having an entire conference virtually. It's crazy.
And I want to add on to this, being a fitness entrepreneur, when I think about fitness, I think it has to be midway. Although fitness industry has transformed the ways nobody has imagined during this 7-8 months, but then uh, as an entrepreneur who's in that segment, I would say don't go overboard in terms of transformation and don't keep yourself at the backside. So take a midway and get adjusted to the new changes.
Yeah. So a question from audience, Koyal Murmu. So sorry, it just got missed. This is a question from Koyal Murmu. She says, how do I interact and engage being an introvert? How do I come out of my shell? So Saloni, if you can.
I think the challenge is real because so I wouldn't call myself an introvert, but I'm an ambivert. I'm also not an extrovert. Like it doesn't come super naturally to me to go out and have conversations with people and really just get the ball rolling, which I've seen comes naturally to so many people. Mm-hmm. But for me, it takes a little bit of an effort. So I kind of understand where you are. Of course, I wouldn't call myself a complete introvert, but I think what really what really helps is finding a few of these areas that you get really excited about. Like I've seen introverts even get excited about certain areas that they are super passionate about. So find those areas for you. Find your kind of community who you feel super comfortable with, and start showing up with them, and start discussing whatever you have in your mind with them. Put out your thoughts. That's something that definitely can be explored by an introvert. I think something else that's also very doable is, introverts are also great at, I've seen that they're amazing. They tend to be amazing writers and readers. So that's a whole space that you can explore. Maybe if talking doesn't come naturally, you think about it. Would you prefer writing down your thoughts? There are platforms where you can do that today very effectively, and you can actually build a very strong community for yourself there as well. So that's also something that you can explore. Introverts also tend to be very passionate people, about certain areas. They become amazing content consumers. I've seen, that introverts also tend to be really good critics because they consume content so much more passionately than extroverts, because they're just the consuming kind of people. So maybe that could be an area that you can explore. So just finding your niche, finding something that gets you excited, finding the right community, and then showing up one day at a time. Take it slow. Do it with the kind of people that you feel most comfortable with, and I think with each passing day, you'll see yourself, getting better with it. That's the policy that has worked for me. This is the exact strategy that I used to start showing up on camera, which, believe me, even today is a challenge.
It is.
In fact, I would just like to add one point. So the fact that there are more than 250 people who are attending this session, and that Koil came out and she's asking this question without the fear of it, that itself says that you are not an introvert. It's just that you have to find your spot and strike the chord.
And then talking virtually gives you another advantage, because you're talking within your circle, people who are interested in hearing you out and who have similar kind of interests. So I think that works wonderfully for anybody to come out and express themselves in whatever ways and means. It can be a video, it can be a poem, it can be memes also. So whatever you like, you can do that.
Yeah. That's a great. It's very simple, subtle, but it's such a great finding, right? So forget about who's there in the room. Just pick your mic and start putting your mind out. Just start dancing, right?
Exactly.
And then you're no more an introvert. You have your own world.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So here is a question from Shubhika Sharma. How to keep audience to engage more when you are a lifestyle blogger? Asking because you have on and off content. This is to Diksha, if you can.
Okay. So when it comes to blogging or anything which is, which is very much visually strong, when it comes to lifestyle blogging or fitness blogging, try to find out what exactly your audience wants. So I, being an Instagram influencer, I keep asking questions on my story. And that's how I plan my future content, what they really want to see. Because if you are catering to their demands and, take a chunk of all the questions and make something out of it, which gives answer to all the questions, I think that's how you can keep the audience engaged. and deliver what they want. And that's how more and more audience do come and connect with you. So it is always a two-way communication. And through social media platforms now, things are very much vocal, where you can find out what exactly your audience want to see, hear, and read about the niche that you have created. It can be through comments, it can be question and answers, it can be DMs. And then in one single post, you can answer to a lot of questions in one go. So uh, keep that communication on and keep talking to your audience.
Great. So we are almost at the end of 2020, and we are looking forward with a lot of hope towards 2021. So in terms of doing things different, like I started off this conversation saying that when things become normal, so 99% of us will go back to normal life. But then that 1% of it, now I can see two of them here, that 1% people, who will do things different and who will who will make their mark.
Yes.
So when you are looking forward to your 2021, how do you want to approach it? To start with, Saloni, there's a question to both of you, but let's start with Saloni.
Yeah, I think it's very true. The whole pandemic era that we saw, I think that was so new for all of us, and we were exposed to the kind of challenges that we never thought we would ever see in our life. So that really forced me, challenged me to come out of my shell, to really explore, to really think out of the box, and like come up with strategies, not just for my business but also for my personal life, that would help me grow on a regular basis. So I think I would definitely consider myself in that 1%. I don't think it's that number is 1% for sure. It would be larger, because I think a lot of have coping up with.
I think, Saloni, if people subscribe to your Hustle Post Academy, I think you will increase the pie and make it 10%.
Absolutely. That's a good point. So I think, so there are a lot of people who find their own ways of coping up with this time, and they've really re-strategized, like I said, not just their business, their profession, but also their personal life and their passion and everything. So I think for me, going forward into 2021, I just want to take a couple of learnings with me that I've had in this year. Number one is I just want to be like, the entire 2020, I was just so grateful for the fact that I have been lucky enough to not be impacted by the disease itself. I haven't. I've had a beautiful, comfortable home where I actually get to live and really like distance myself from the world, so that I can keep myself safe. I've had regular supply of food coming to me, water, all of that. So I think just that feeling of gratefulness that I've had throughout 2020, I want to carry that forward with me throughout I think my rest of my life, because I think that's just all of the complaining that I used to do before 2020, all of that seems really trivial now. Just the fact that I have the basics in place. So that's one. I think the next thing is just being on my toes and really thinking quickly is something of 2020. Just the fact that any kind of challenge can come to you from anywhere in the world, you possibly can't control yourself, and as humans, I think we have the capability to really think through it and find out of the box solutions that can really set us and our entire career and life trajectory onto a completely different path. So that's also something that I've learned in 2020. Number three, I've realized I am very strong in 2020. When this pandemic, I lost almost all of my areas of revenue when my brand deals that I had so many lined up. A lot of them started getting cancelled. Ad revenue in general came down a little bit. Advertisers were not looking to spend money, at least at the beginning of the pandemic. So a lot of the areas of revenue were completely cut off. But I think I was able to really quickly come up with things that have put my business on a completely different trajectory this year. So I realized that I'm strong and I can actually come up with solutions. So like I'm ready for whatever challenges may come in 2021 and beyond. I think I'm very ready for them. So I think just taking these kind of these realizations with me in 2021, I think that's what I'm looking for, and I'm excited for whatever comes.
Great. How about you, Diksha?
So it's been 2-3 years the company started, and 2018 was my first year, and I was excited. In 2019, I was growing up. And obviously with that kind of expectation, I headed towards 2020, and that's when pandemic happened. It was a big transition where as a family, we took a decision that I will make a permanent base in Delhi, and then immediately lockdown happened, and I was clueless and lost for whatever plans I had made to expand my work. How will that work? And I was demotivated right at the beginning because, like Saloni said, revenues were affected. People, fitness is considered as a leisure. When you have ample amount of money to, live your life comfortably, then you go for taking up a fitness plan. So it did bother me, but it also, the pressure, or I would say the environmental changes happened in 2020 helped me to push myself to the limits I never imagined I could go. And like I said, I transformed the entire process and how I can, invest whatever money I want to invest in my business in the right direction so that I can get the right revenue back. So yes, it taught me that you can do it if you have your mind and heart at the right place, and you want to make sure that things keep on rolling no matter what. And now I think Saloni will agree. We can face anything. Those who have survived this and still, growing, we can face anything, any sort of challenge, and a global change also. And I'm looking forward to 2021 to expand my work virtually, because 2020 before pandemic, the plan was to set up an office and a studio, but then that didn't happen. So why not start a virtual studio and begin the same work which I planned for,
Yeah.
having an infrastructure. So let's do that in 2021. Hopefully things will go as per the plan.
Sure, sure. So there's a very interesting question here from the audience. I think all three of us can help here. So the question is, how to make my content sellable? How can I become a brand and reduce my dependency on YouTube or Instagram to earn? This is from Abhijit. Let me start now. I think I can answer that question.
Yes.
It's a very easy thing. It's a 3-step process. First step, go immediately to reach out to Saloni. Subscribe to the Hustle Post Academy. Do the course there. Right after the course, reach out to Diksha. She will tell you how to set up your shop, and then come to us, Creator OS. We will help you build your online studio or online content platform, and bingo. So within a month, you will.
I was about to say that, Subash. Go to Creator OS and start your own platform.
Exactly. It's as simple as that. 3-step process, for you to become a successful content entrepreneur. But thanks for the question. So certainly coming back, right? So I wanted to ask so what are the life-changing habits? Like you've been a business coach. So what are the life-changing habits to be successful, especially as a content creator and a coach?
Got it. I think number one, and this is something that I constantly talk about on my channel, wherever I'm present. I think people now just call me this person who always has this one answer. Is really just never stopping to learn. I think there's so much new development and new learning that happens on a regular basis that if you choose to not learn for 2 months straight, you will realize that you lost out on so much information, and that whatever knowledge you have is probably outdated already. So it's really important. I think the biggest learning that I had, and the biggest the one habit that has had the biggest impact in my life is I never stopped learning even after college. Like I ensured that I invested in myself. I invested in books. I invested in coaches. I invested in trainers. I invested in courses. I ensured that I was always learning from people who were 2 steps ahead of me. And that one, that one little habit has helped me so much because now when I look back, the kind of things that I'm doing, 2 years back, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't know this was an industry. I didn't know this was a thing that people could do. But just because I kept learning and I kept exploring, this is something that really that has got me to where I am today. So that's one. I think second biggest habit that I think has helped me a lot is, I think Diksha would agree, and this is something that I realized in 2020, is just taking your health so much more seriously than anything else. Because I personally also had a health issue in 2019, and that put me down a really bad spiral. Like, there was this health issue plus a lot of other things happened in my personal life as well. And for me, when I look back, 2019 was a very low year for me personally, and 99% of that was because physically I wasn't feeling well, physically and mentally. I wasn't feeling my best. And that's when I realized that if you don't have your body and your mind working with you, with the kind of ideas and the passion that you have, everything falls apart. So 2020, I've just come back with like greater focus on my health, my mental health and physical health. I ensure that I eat right, I ensure that I sleep on time. I've moved to an apartment that has enough light so that I wake up in the morning. I've started doing things just so that, just keeping my health in mind. And that has been, I think, one of the biggest changes that has helped me achieve whatever I've achieved in 2020. So these two things, never stop learning, and please focus on your health, your mental as well as physical health. And I think if you have these two things right, I think you'll find your way.
Sure. So there's an interesting question for you. You need not have to answer, but now somebody is really interested to know what your passive income is, and there is super, like almost like 100 votes on that. Guys, you don't need to know Saloni's passive income. She's been successful, and I don't think she has any passive income. Everything is active for her.
No, I do. I have some passive sources of income. So I've created a lot of digital products that bring me a lot of revenue every month. Yeah. So I have my I have my ebooks. I have a lot of my templates and resources that I sell to aspiring creators, and I make a lot of money through that every month. People end up buying it, and for that I have to put in no effort, no energy. It just sells on its own. So passive income has been a big part of my strategy. Even my online course, for that matter, like while I am actively involved with all of my students on a weekly basis, the time and energy that I have to put in, whether I have 10 students or 10,000 or 10 lakh students, it's the same amount of time and energy. So in some ways it's active, in some ways it's very scalably passive also. So that's my passive income strategy.
Yeah. So Diksha, you talked previously a lot about making fitness affordable, and that seems like one of your success mantras when you're reaching out to your audience and to your clients. Can you talk a little bit more about what the thought process is?
So when somebody wants to start towards the journey of getting fit, they think it's a cumbersome process, physically, mentally, and it is financially also a very cumbersome process. But then honestly, you don't need a lot of fancy products, supplements, because that's how a lot of fitness experts try to sell. They have their own vested interest in it. But then the nutrition which is there in your kitchen is enough. Equipment wise, you don't need an equipment to keep yourself fit. You can exercise with body weight exercises. You just need a right guidance plan, and when just the moment you know what you're supposed to do, it makes it affordable. It makes you spend less on things that a lot of people make showcase that it's an essential. It's not essential. Your food is complete. Your body itself is complete to keep itself fit. It just needs some kind of effort from your end. And when it comes to fitness, every budget works, every kind of diet works. And that's what I try to cater with my programs also. So the first, line of questions that I have is that how much you want to invest, how much you want to invest in your diet, how much you want to invest in your training, and how much you want to invest in terms of exercising, whether you want to buy some equipments, whether you want to do a body weight training program, or you want to go for a gym involvement. So if you have the right guidance or a right mentor, you don't need to spend a lot of money. If you have time to explore the avenues to stay fit on your own, you can do that as well. But then it totally depends upon how much you want to spend in it, how much important you find it. So, like Saloni said, that investing in the right way, investing in learning, investing in your health, in your mental wellness, that's an essential more than anything, any commodities that you want to invest in. So, But when it comes to affordability, fitness is, I think, one of the aspect that has everything for everybody, for every budget.
Sure.
A lot of people, a lot of my colleagues in the segment miss that part, but I want to be very vocal about it because it is more about passion than profession to me. And I want to ensure, I know that when a homemaker starts her journey towards fitness, she's not sure, or she's not financially independent. She does not want to invest a huge amount, or maybe she does not want to go to the gym and work out. So it's absolutely fine. But yes, finding the right platform to start working towards your health is more important than going for fancy things and increasing your budget now and then.
So there's a question from Rimika. How to connect with both Hindi and English speaking audience? Keep it a bit of both. Is that so, Saloni? If you can pick up that.
Yeah, I think so. Generally, what we as content creators believe is that if you create content for everyone, you create content for no one. So try to identify who your target group is. I understand that it's really tempting to to speak to both English as well as Hindi speaking audiences, because that just gives you a very wide reach, and your audience base becomes as big as possible. But having said that, I think picking one niche and sticking to it and connecting with the audience in that space singularly is a better strategy in the long run, because you end up making deeper connections, you end up making better connections with people. So that's the strategy that I personally use, and I recommend others as well. But having said that, if you're sure that if you're somebody who yourself are speak in Hindi, if you yourself speak in Hindi as well as English both, and you're equally comfortable and you want to really show up for both kind of audiences, I think start off with speaking in both languages every once in a while. Switch between languages, it's okay. Try to make sure that you really get the nerve of both kind of audiences. So the kind of things that is exciting for each audience group is also really different. So get that nerve right. Speak to them about the things that they care about, and I think that in itself, language is just a medium. So as long as you get the nerve of the audience right, language becomes irrelevant.
Even a lot of regional content creators are doing so well in their segment. So, like she said rightly, language is just a medium of communication. You just need to hit the right spot when it comes to creating that kind of content. Create what is required, and then you will get the spot on.
Yeah. So just an addition. So right after this session, there is a panel on finding your niche, and my partner, co-founder of CreatorOS, is going to deal with some of these topics. Language versus identifying your niche segment and all that. Please do join for that. So it will be a great session for all the budding influencers, creators. So in the same vein, so Pratyasha from Roy, is asking, other than good communication skills, what are other basic skills that you would recommend that we inculcate as a creator or an influencer on YouTube and Instagram? Diksha, if you can.
Other than the communication skills, just be more presentable. I am not saying put a lot of makeup and then sit in front of the camera and take pictures. It's your choice, whatever you're comfortable in. But yes, be dressed well and look neat and be presentable, and that's all is needed when it comes to creating the visual part of the content.
Like
other than that, yeah, your expertise matters a lot. No, not at all. Your expertise matters a lot, but then if you're not conveying your expertise in a presentable manner, obviously it will not be adapted very well. Social media has a lot to do with visual interference, how it is presented. A lot of my followers or a lot of people who communicate with me or ask me questions by looking at the picture, what is there on the post. So it makes a lot of difference. Most of them probably will not read the essay or I've written below the post. So it makes a lot of difference that whatever you want to communicate to the audience, it's well written and well presented. If it is your picture, it's okay. If it is a picture referring to the content it's a referral picture, that's also fine. But then presentation makes a lot of difference. So make sure you are at your best whenever it comes to social media presence.
Nice. Thank you. So there is one question coming from Mohammad Ayaz Raza. I want to know that when you and everyone start from zero to that everyone starts from zero, and at some point of time you become famous. So I want to know when should I start putting ads? Is it worthy, or do we have to? Like, what should we consider while using ads as a medium to get audience? That's the question.
Right. So my personal recommendation, at least for the initial stages of your content creation journey, is to really focus on building an organic community. People who find you organically stick with you longer, engage with you better, and really give you the real kind of feedback that actually helps you grow as well. So organic is what I focus on, and I think most of the creators who've made it big are creators who work organically more than anything else. So in the initial stages of your journey, consider organic as the only medium that you should focus on. But as you grow, of course, after you reach a certain point, once you know that your organic community is good enough and it's big enough to give you the right kind of feedback and support, that is when you can consider getting into paid advertising as well to grow your audience better and faster. So I would say engage into so the right time to engage in paid advertising has been once you've established that small organic community at least 1,000 real followers. Now, by 1,000 real followers, I don't mean having 1,000 as a subscriber number. When you may have 10,000 subscribers, but you may have, out of those, you may just have 1,000 real subscribers. So just when you
start interacting with you,
yeah. So just when you see same kind of people showing up, coming back to you, they're the same people who comment on every video. They're the same people who come and chat with you on DMs as well. Once you start seeing that little bit of a community getting built up, that's when you can consider getting into paid advertising as well. But the best thing about platforms that we have in today's day and age, like YouTube or Instagram, they promote discoverability. They thrive. The reason why these platforms exist is so that they can help other consumers discover creators who create the content that consumer is sort of excited about. So that's the reason why they exist, and that's why they're being used by people, because they're in touch with the right kind of people. So you don't necessarily have to explore that if you get the nerve of the platform right, if you understand YouTube well, if you understand Instagram well, and all of this. I think paid advertising is not even something that's going to be a part of your strategy at all. Like for me, for my community growth, I've never used paid advertising, and I would say that is true for most content creators in today's age. But of course, paid advertising becomes available. There's no harm in it. Just make sure that it's not a part of your initial strategy.
Okay. So there's a question to me. Nidhi Ramchandani is asking, does Creator Voice work with Instagrammers as well? So Nidhi, so basically we work with different kinds of content creators. In fact, now we also have a lot of offline folks who come and have been successful on the platform. It's so being active on these platforms, it helps you have a great fan following. So you already build trust with your followers, with your rich content on Instagram, YouTube, on various different platforms. Now, by coming onto a platform like Creator Voice and building your premium content there, you can then get all this audience who are part of your regular social media channels, divert them to your courses or your subscriptions on the Creator Voice platform. So we have seen that even if you convert 3 to 5% of your audience, so imagine if you have 1,000 subscriptions and each one of them paying 100 rupees a month, or 1,000 rupees a year, do the math, that's 10 lakhs of income that you're going to get. And we have so many of the creators who are successfully doing it out of their house. And that's what's inspiring for us. So last question, so we still have 2 minutes time just to wrap it up. I didn't realize that just 58 minutes went in a jiffy. So we have two power-packed women, so very successful and very inspiring. So as a parting note, we see that there are a lot of societal constraints that doesn't allow women to start their own business. So there is a fear of, so what will my family think? What will my friends think? There are a few of the audience are also asking this question. So this is a question to each one of you. How do you think that women can break that barrier, cross that barrier, and get into mainstream entrepreneurship? We will start with Saloni, if you can.
Yeah, I think there's nothing more empowering seeing a woman do amazing things. So for me, this is also something that I regularly say on my social media, that, any kind of success for one woman is success for women in general. Because if one person does it, it shows us that it's possible for us to do it as well. So for me, seeing women like Diksha is just amazing. So I think my suggestion to women would be to really, figure out and understand that you're really strong. A lot of your journey entrepreneurship really begins with you really identifying and connecting with yourself as a person. You need to understand that you're strong, that you have the capability, and that you have all that you need to become a successful entrepreneur. As women, we are inherently better at doing a lot of things. So, like time management, making sure that things are structured. These are things that come very naturally to us. I would strongly recommend all of you to, really take that bank on that strength that we have as women. Identify your areas of strength. Really, surround yourself with a community that really, uplifts you. Because a lot of times the reason why we feel underconfident, the reason why we feel is because we're surrounded by the kind of people who probably put us down. So if you're surrounded with the right kind of community, if you're surrounded with people who are constantly uplifting you and are telling you that, hey, listen, you're good at this, why don't you consider doing this? If you get that, if you hear that from 5 people, I've seen this. If you hear amazing things about you from 5 people, that does so much for your confidence. So, of course, yourself, start accepting the fact that you're amazing. You have a lot of things that you can possibly do, and surround yourself with just the right kind of people. And just these 2 things will push you to do such amazing things. And of course, go back to my previous, habit suggestions. Focus on your health, focus on yourself. Women don't tend to focus on themselves. There's always concerns about their family, their, people around them. So focus on yourself as well, and invest in your own personal development growth. If you do just these things right, I think, entrepreneurship is just another small thing that you can achieve in this amazing life that we live.
Very well said, Saloni. Diksha?
Subhash, here I will take my own example. You need to be very sure about your idea and concept. When I thought of starting or building my career in this segment, obviously the family, friends, were not really convinced. But I was sure that I can do well in this, and I was, you have that spark in you that, okay, yes, I can do it. I can very well manage this. Obviously, I didn't know how good or bad it will go, but then I was sure that whatever I'm going to talk about it or start working towards it will make a lot of difference. Not even just to one person's life. That's done. That's job is done. So women obviously have, like Saloni also said, we have this habit of doubting our own capabilities, ourselves, and that happens because society in general doubts women a lot in terms of, we are in 2020, but still we are considered as somebody who needs to be, at home managing household work only. And if you have time, you can build your own career. But then becoming a full-time entrepreneur and then taking care of your responsibilities, which you want to do it happily, is something which needs a lot of conviction in your own heart and mind. And then family or close friends are people who love you the most, no matter what. And once they see that conviction, once they see that she is really sure about what she's doing, they will support you. That's what family is for. That's what those close friends are for. And those who are, pulling you back or, demeaning you or something like that, don't bother. That means they're not there for you during your good times and bad times. So just keep doing what you're supposed to do.
Awesome.
Make sure people who really matter to you are there for you.
Awesome. Great. Saloni and Diksha, it was such an honor to have both of you. I'm sure so the audience were really, they really enjoyed this session. They're like almost 250 folks, and they're still with us because, so although the second session has already started. So folks, now, thanks again. Thank you so much for being on the panel. And for all the audience, the next session, Finding Your Niche, has started. Let's all jump into that event, and over and out now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.